The table didn't add up. Park Jin-soo had been staring at the laptop screen for 40 minutes already. The third column stubbornly gave a 7% error, and the reason was somewhere in the formula he had written at 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 days ago. Night formulas always contained errors. It was his personal law, tested many times. Outside the porthole, clouds. White, dense, even like cotton wool. The plane flew over them evenly without turbulence. A good flight, calm. He leaned back in his seat, stretched. His neck was stiff. 5 hours at the laptop in an airplane seat was not ergonomics. He took the plastic cup of coffee. It had long gone cold, but caffeine is caffeine. Drank it, grimaced, looked out the porthole. Clouds. Somewhere beyond them, the South China Sea. Somewhere ahead, Manila, hotel, negotiations. Another 3 days of business trip, and then Seoul again, office again, tables again. An endless conveyor that he himself had built for himself 5 years ago and had not stopped since. He was 34. Sometimes in such moments, on planes between cities, in the gap between one task and the next, he thought, is this all I do? Fly, count, sleep 6 hours, count again? But usually there was no time to think about it. He returned to the table. He found the error. It was there in the third row, a wrong bracket. Fixed it. Recalculated. The table added up. Jin-soo closed the laptop with the satisfaction of a small task completed. Took the headphones. Chose something neutral. Jazz. Quiet. Closed his eyes. Thought he could sleep for an hour. A flight attendant walked past, the sound of a drinks cart, quiet conversation in the tail of the cabin. The monotonous hum of the engines, light rocking. He was almost falling asleep. And then the plane shuddered. At first it looked like ordinary turbulence. One sharp jolt, then a second. Jin-soo opened his eyes, removed the headphones. Nearby across the aisle, a man in a business suit put aside the newspaper and looked out the porthole with slight concern. An ordinary reaction to ordinary turbulence. But then the engines changed sound. It was imperceptible to most passengers. You had to fly many flights to feel the difference. Jin-soo flew often, too often. He felt it. The even hum became uneven. A pulsation appeared, irregular, alarming. He unfastened his seatbelt, then immediately fastened it back, automatically. In the speakers, a short click. The pilot's voice, calm, trained even. Ladies and gentlemen, we are passing through an area of slight turbulence. Please fasten your seatbelts and remain in your seats. Crew. The second blow was much stronger than the first. So strong that glasses fell from the folding tables. Someone screamed in the tail. The luggage racks rattled. The plane lurched to the right, noticeably strongly. Then silence of the engines. Not a decrease in sound. Exactly silence as if someone had turned it off. For several seconds, the entire cabin was silent. Passengers, flight attendants, everyone. They just kept silent and listened to this silence that should not have existed. Then the plane began to fall. What happened next, Jin-soo remembered in fragments. Screams, many, immediately, from everywhere. Someone behind him prayed aloud, quickly, incoherently. A flight attendant rolled down the aisle forward, grabbed a seat, hung on. The laptop flew somewhere under the seat. The plane was falling, nose down. Jin-soo saw in the porthole clouds that were now on the side and not below, and realized that the bank was about 45 degrees, maybe more. Oxygen masks fell from the panels. He put on his own without thinking. His hands did it themselves. Looked to the right, looked to the left. No one nearby. The seats were empty. Then the engines came to life. One, convulsively for a few seconds. The plane jerked. The bank leveled out a little, then silence again. And then very quickly the approaching roar of the wind against the hull, growing to white noise, and through the porthole he saw not clouds but water and greenery and water again. And impact. White light, very bright, too bright. He squinted, then slowly, carefully opened his eyes. Sky, blue, absolutely clear, no cloud, no plane. He was lying on his back on something soft and hot, sand. It was sand. Wet, coarse, warm under the shoulder blades, and cold under the fingers. He lay and just breathed for a minute, maybe more. Every breath checked that the lungs were working, that air was coming in and out, that it was real. Real. His head was buzzing, deep, dull pain behind the temples. Right shoulder, when trying to move the arm, a sharp response signal, not broken but a serious bruise. Palms, cuts, not deep, already dried, salty taste in the mouth. He slowly sat up. In front of him, the ocean. Calm, blue, lazy waves rolled onto the shore and receded. On the surface of the water, debris. A lot of debris. Plastic, metal, pieces of cladding, suitcases. Something was burning. A small piece of fuselage at the water's edge. Black smoke rose upward. Jinsu turned around. Behind his back, the beach 30 meters wide, white even, and behind the beach, jungle. A dense wall of trees 40 meters high, dark green, impenetrable. Birds screamed inside. He sat and looked at all this. Sat for a long time. Did not get up. Because he understood. This minute was the last minute before. Before it was necessary to start acting, making decisions, taking responsibility for every next step. He felt this threshold clearly. After that, everything would be different. He remembered the table, the third column that didn't add up, the coffee that had gone cold, jazz in the headphones, the thought that he could sleep for an hour. He smiled quietly without amusement. So that's how it is, he said to himself. His voice sounded hoarse, dry throat, seawater. He stood up, swayed, stayed on his feet, took the first step. The first 10 minutes he just walked along the shore. He wasn't looking for anything specific, just moving, letting his body understand that it was working, that his legs held him, that balance was there. His head buzzed less when he walked. Pain in the shoulder, sharp with sudden movement, dull with normal, tolerable, alive, relatively intact. That was already a lot. He walked and looked around methodically, a habit from the army, construction battalion. 3 years taught him to look at space as a task. What is there? Where you are? What threatens? The shore was long. As far as the eye could see in both directions the beach went, curved, disappeared behind capes. The island was clearly large. Not a small rocky atoll, a real one with relief, with jungle, possibly with a river. The plain debris was scattered widely, about 300 meters along the shore. A large piece of the tail section halfway in the water. A separate wing almost intact lay like a monument. Seats, suitcases, pieces of plastic, passengers' personal belongings. All this quietly swayed on the waves or lay on the sand. He hadn't seen people yet, neither living nor. He didn't finish the thought, concentrated on the shore. On the 5th minute of walking, he saw movement behind a large piece of fuselage about 100 meters ahead. Someone was sitting. He quickened his pace. She was sitting by the wreckage and looking at the water. Small, Jinsu assessed even on approach. Short dark hair in disarray, gray blouse. Expensive, businesslike, now torn at the shoulder. She pressed a small bag tightly to her chest with both hands, as if it was the only thing that mattered. "Hey," he said. She raised her head. Eyes alive, clear, without the emptiness that happens after real shock. She looked at him calmly, appraisingly, like a person who had already coped with the first wave and was now just waiting for what would happen next. "Alive," she said. Voice even. Alive. He squatted down next to her, not looming from above, conversation at the same level. "Are you injured?" "Leg." She nodded down, left shin, a ragged wound 3 centimeters long, blood dried. "Not deep. Hurts, but I can walk." "Good. My name is Park Jinsu. Lee Hannah." "How long have you been sitting here?" "I don't know." She was silent for a bit. "When I woke up, I lay for a while. Then I got up, walked that way. Nod to the left. Didn't find anyone there. Came back here." "You did the right thing by coming back," he said. "No need to go far until we know the island." She nodded without questions, just accepted the information. "Is there anyone else?" she asked. "Looking," he said. "With me?" "Yes." She stood up, wincing but without complaints, threw the bag over her shoulder. They went to the right, found the second one in 7 minutes. Jinsu noticed her first, a dark spot in the wet sand behind a large piece of the tail section, motionless. He quickened his pace, went around the wreckage. The girl was lying face down. 1 second of bad silence, then he lowered himself next to her and carefully turned her onto her back with both hands. She coughed sharply, deeply, spitting out water and something else. Her chest rose, then again, alive. Hannah squatted down on the other side silently, businesslike. Helped the girl take a more comfortable position. "Breathe," said Jinsu. Slowly. "Like this." The girl breathed first convulsively, then more evenly, then evenly. Opened her eyes, blinked, looked at the sky, then at him, then at Hannah. Where are we? The first question. On an island, said Jinsu. Which one? We don't know yet. He examined her while she was coming to herself. Bruise on the temple visible by the swelling, abrasions on the arms and knees, clothes torn. Nothing critical visible. Choi Yoonji, she said when she could speak normally. I am Choi Yoonji, Park Jinsu. This is Lee Hana. How many of us? So far 3, he said. We continue to look. They spent another hour examining the entire visible section of the shore, methodically on both sides. Jinsu checked every piece of debris, every dark spot on the water, every object that could be a person. Didn't find anyone else, no living. And others too. He tried not to look for them too attentively with his eyes. Not now. Now was not the time for that. Returned to the girls. They were sitting together by the tail section. Hannah was bandaging her leg with a piece of fabric from a torn shirt she had found on the shore. Yoonji held the end of the bandage for her. They were silent, but the silence was working, not depressed. A good sign. Jinsu sat down next to them, looked at the ocean. The water was calm, blue, debris slowly swayed. The sun stood high, about noon, hot. A bird circled over the jungle far away. No helicopters, no boats, nothing on the horizon. He took out his phone and turned it on. Charged 32%. GPS, no satellites. Network empty. Turned it off? Well, he said. Both looked at him. Tell me what you had with you. Everything that was in pockets, bags, anything. The next hour, inventory. They searched the shore again, now purposefully. Every suitcase, every bag, every container. Jinsu determined what to take, what to leave. The girls carried, stacked in one place. Work calmed. This he knew from the army. When hands are busy with work, the head doesn't go where it shouldn't. By the end of the hour, on the spread piece of cladding lay the following. Water. 8 bottles of different volumes, all sealed, found in hand luggage. A few more broken, loss. In total, about 15 liters. Total. Food, small but varied. In-flight meals in several surviving containers. A pack of nuts, chocolate, canned food. 3 cans without labels. Several packs of crackers. A crumpled banana that Yoonji found in someone else's bag and was as happy about as if it were her own. Tools. Swiss knife from the pocket of a found backpack. Lighter, Jinsu had it with him, remained in his jacket pocket. Metal tube from the plane structure, short, heavy, useful. Several bolts, brackets, a piece of steel wire. Medicine, first aid kit from someone's carrying hand luggage. Plasters, bandage, antiseptic. Small scissors, tablets of several types. Clothes, several suitcases opened. Various clothes, several pairs of shoes. 1 pair of sneakers fit Jinsu. The girl's own shoes were intact. And the most valuable find, a tourist backpack of medium size. Inside, a sleeping bag for one, a small pot with a lid, a coil of rope 30 meters, a folding shovel, matches in a waterproof container, a flashlight, batteries alive, works. Someone seriously prepared for the trip, said Yoonji, holding the shovel. We got lucky, said Jinsu. Very. Hannah looked at the laid-out household, counted, assessed. Water for 3 days with strict consumption, she said. Food less. Correct, said Jinsu. Therefore today, fresh water source. Without water, everything else doesn't matter. Maybe first a signal fire? Asked Yoonji. So that we are found? Jinsu looked at her. She asked seriously, not out of fear, out of logic. Right question. Fire, yes, he said. We'll make it. But first I'll tell you something and I want you to hear it. Don't get upset. Just hear it. They looked at him. The flight disappeared over one of the most difficult areas for search in the world. Thousands of islands, jungle, variable currents. The search operation will begin, that's for sure. But finding a specific island may take days, or more. Pause. Therefore, we do everything at the same time. Fire, yes, as a signal, and water, and shelter, and food also today. We don't wait. We prepare. For long? Asked Hannah. For as long as needed, he said. Silence. Good, said Hannah simply. Yoonji looked at the jungle behind their backs, then back at him. Is there anything dangerous there? I don't know, said Jinsu honestly. But we go together and go carefully. The signal fire was lit on the open shore in half an hour. Jinsu built it in a high place, on a small dune in the center of the beach, visible from the water and from the air. Dry branches, leaves, a piece of plastic from the debris. Plastic gave black, thick smoke, visible far away. They watched as the smoke rose upward, a straight column in windless air. Is it well visible? Asked Eunji. From a helicopter, yes, said Jinsu. We won't be able to maintain it around the clock. Fuel is little. Morning and evening every day. Hannah nodded, wrote it down in her head. Now water, said Jinsu. Get ready. They went into the jungle, 3 of them. Jinsu in front with the metal tube in his hand. Not a weapon, just heavy and in the hand. Better than nothing. At the entrance to the jungle, he stopped, stood, listened. Birds, many different voices high in the crowns. Insects, somewhere far away a monotonous sound similar to water. Do you hear? He said quietly. What? Eunji listened. Over there. He pointed the direction. Water. Or it seems to me. It seems to me too, said Hannah. They went toward the sound. Slowly, Jinsu looked under his feet, carefully parted branches. Eunji held onto his shoulder, not out of fear, just the forest was dense and there was no path. Hannah walked behind quietly, attentively. She was generally quiet, Jinsu noted this, not silent, observing. But in 10 minutes they found it. A small stream, water clean, transparent, murmured over stones. Cold, he lowered his hand, felt it. Eunji immediately reached out to drink. No, said Jinsu. Boil first, it looks clean. Looks, he agreed. But there may be parasites here that are not visible. We always boil. She removed her hand. Without offense, he examined the place around the stream. Flat ground, trees around, the stream wide enough, 40 centimeters. It went deeper into the jungle. Remember this place, he said. Landmarks. This tree with a forked trunk, these 3 stones in a row. From the shore you go northwest about 12 minutes. How do you know where north is? Asked Eunji. Soon, he said. Noon, sun almost strictly above, slightly to the north. Standard for these latitudes. He scooped water into the pot, returned to the shore, lit a small fire, boiled it, poured into bottles. Slowly, hot, but correctly. They drank boiled water from the pot in turn, by mug. The best thing I've drunk all day, said Eunji seriously. Jinsu almost smiled. The second half of the day went to the shelter. Spending the night under the open sky was not deadly, the weather was warm. But wrong. Dew at night, insects. And he didn't say this aloud. Unknown, what comes out of the jungle at night. He chose a place at the base of a large tail section of the plain. The metal structure gave a wall on one side and a partial roof. 3 sides open, but one wall was already better than 0. He closed the open sides with branches, palm leaves that he cut with a knife, a piece of cladding found on the shore. Rough, ugly, but functional. Eunji helped, carried branches, held while he fastened, worked without questions, diligently. Hannah took care of the food, opened canned food, laid out crackers, cut the banana equally. Without extra words, organized dinner from what there was. They ate when the sun began to set. Saved a little, but there was no hot and cold canned food with crackers seemed quite acceptable. Sat by the small fire, listened as the jungle darkened. Sounds changed, daytime birds fell silent, nighttime began. Something screamed far away, prolonged, unfamiliar. What is it? Asked Eunji quietly. A bird probably, said Jinsu. Probably? Likely. She looked at the darkness behind the beach. Do you think there are animals on the island? Almost certainly, he said. The island is large, but most likely small birds, possibly monkeys, reptiles. There is nothing large predatory in this region. He didn't add the second half of the thought about the fact that animals were not the only thing worth fearing. Islands in this region were not all inhabited, but many, and not all this population was friendly to random guests. But that later. First survived the first night. We sleep in turns, he said. 2 hours one, 2 hours the other. I first, then you. Why? Asked Eunji. So that someone always hears what is happening around. Hannah nodded, accepted. Yoonji too, after a second. Jinsu sat by the fire until the girls fell asleep. It took less time than he expected. Fatigue took its toll. Hannah almost immediately curled up neatly on the sleeping bag. Yoonji looked at the fire for a few more minutes, then closed her eyes. He sat and looked into the darkness. The ocean roared evenly. The jungle lived its nightlife. Rustles, bird cries, monotonous chirping of insects. Stars overhead bright, many, the sky here clean without city light. Jinsu sat and thought. Thought about the table and the laptop somewhere in the ocean now, at the bottom probably. Thought about the negotiations in Manila that would not take place. Thought about the fact that in Seoul the boss would wait for the report on Friday. Then stopped thinking about it. Because all that was not here. Here was the island. Stream 12 minutes from the shore. 15 liters of water. Small supply of food. 2 people who depended on how correctly he thought. And jungle from which nothing had come out yet. Yet. He threw a branch into the fire. Okay, he said quietly, and began to think about what needed to be done tomorrow. He hardly slept all night. Not out of fear, out of thoughts. Lay on his back, looked through the cracks of the homemade roof at the stars and thought. Counted. Planned. It was his mode from the army. When everything is unclear and scary, the best thing you can do is think in an organized way. What there is. What is needed. What to do first. At dawn, when the first gray light touched the horizon and the birds in the jungle began the morning chorus, he got up quietly without waking the girls. Went out to the shore, stood by the water. The ocean was calm. Fog lay at the horizon, low, dense, white. No ships, no helicopters, nothing. Second day. He lit the signal fire, added fresh green leaves. They gave more smoke. White column rose upward. Sat next to it and looked at the fire. And at that moment, something happened inside. Quietly, without drama, just clicked. He remembered the words he sometimes thought on planes between business trips. Is this all I do? Fly, count, sleep 6 hours. Endless conveyor. And thought unexpectedly, almost with a laugh, that the conveyor had stopped. Itself. Independently, without his participation. There were no more deadlines. There was no boss waiting for a report. There were no business trips to Manila and back. There were no tables that didn't add up at 2 o'clock in the morning. There was an island. Stream 12 minutes away. 3 people who needed to survive. He thought a strange thought, but honest, that he hadn't felt like this for a long time. Present. Here. In this particular point. In this particular moment. No layers, no office on top of fatigue, on top of the next task. Just island, dawn, fire, can't sleep. He turned around. Hannah stood behind his shoulder in a jacket buttoned up to the throat, hair tied back. Looked at him calmly. Was thinking, he said. About what? He was silent for a second, then said honestly, about the fact that help may not come quickly, pause, and about the fact that it doesn't scare me as much as it should. Hannah sat down next to him on the sand. Looked at the fire. Me too, she said quietly. A little ashamed to admit it. Why ashamed? Because you need to be afraid. We are on an island without communication, without food, without anything. She was silent. And I sit and think, well, okay. Jinsu looked at her. Well, okay, he repeated. She nodded, almost smiled. They sat silently for several minutes. The ocean roared. The fog melted as the sun rose. What are we doing today? She asked. Reconnaissance, he said. We need to know the island. What is here, how big it is, if there are other shores. Pause, and choose a place. For what? For a base. Hannah looked at him. Are you serious? Yes, he said. If help comes in a week, we will have a good shelter. If in a month, we will have a home. He looked at the jungle. In any case, we don't lose. Yoonji woke up when the sun had already risen. Came out of the shelter with the look of a person who slept badly and knows it, disheveled with a fabric imprint on her cheek. Looked at Jinsu, at Hannah, at the empty horizon. No one, she said. No one, he confirmed. She nodded, without panic, just accepted the fact. Is there anything? Hannah had already laid out breakfast. Crackers, nuts, half a chocolate bar each. Pot with boiled water on the fire. They ate silently. Economically. Everyone understood without explanations. After eating, Jinsu stood up. Listen carefully, he said. Today, reconnaissance of the island. There are 3 of us. We won't separate. We take water, knife, tube. We leave for a maximum of 3 hours. If we haven't returned by noon, it means something went wrong. But it won't. Where does the confidence come from? Asked Unji. No confidence, he said. There is a plan. These are different things. She thought for a second. Fair. They entered the jungle from the other side, not along the path to the stream, but to the left, where the trees parted a little, giving a wider passage. Jinsu walked first, slowly, attentively, looked under his feet, roots, stones, possible pits, looked ahead, what changes in the greenery? Listened. Yunji held on to him closely, almost touching his shoulder. Hannah last looked around periodically. The jungle was dense but passable, not as impenetrable as in movies. Here was an adult forest with high trunks and empty space under the crowns. Lianas, yes, in places. Ferns up to the waist in places. But you could walk. Birds flew away in front of them. Somewhere high, monkeys he heard saw movement in the crowns. Monkeys, said Unji. Yes, many? Enough. This is good. Means there are no large predators. With predators, monkeys do not live on the lower tier. Logical, she said. After 20 minutes of walking, the forest began to change. Trees became lower, gaps wider, underfoot grass instead of foliage. Jinsu stopped. Clearing. Large, about 70 meters in diameter, almost round. In the center, several large flat stones protruding from the ground. Along the edges, trees, but not as dense as before. He walked around the clearing along the edge. Looked. Good relief, slightly higher than the surrounding forest means rainwater goes away, does not stagnate. Open sky, there will be sun. This is important for the garden. Rocks, building material, base for walls. This is it, he said. What? Asked Yunji. Place for the base. She looked around, trees, clearing, stones. Here, in the middle of the jungle? Exactly because of that, he said. From the shore, 20 minutes walk. Far enough not to be seen from the water. Close enough to hear if ships come. Relief high, won't flood. Stones for walls. He looked at the trees along the perimeter, and forest around. Material. Hannah stood and looked at the clearing. Thought. Stream far? She asked. 10 minutes from here, he said. Need to check the direction, but about that. Good, she said simply. Yunji looked less convinced. But if we are rescued in a week, we build everything in vain. No, said Jinsu. If rescued in a week, we spent the week usefully and didn't go crazy from idleness. He looked at her. Construction keeps the head busy. That's also important, she thought. Also fair, she said. They continued reconnaissance for another hour and found what changed everything. It was beyond the clearing, in the direction he had not planned to go. Hannah noticed first. Just said quietly, without shouting, Jinsu. Look. He approached. On the ground, ash, old, long-standing, but clear. A circle of burnt ground 1.5 meters in diameter. Nearby stones stacked in a ring. Someone lit a fire here, regularly judging by how black the ground was. Not yesterday, not last week, but not 100 years ago either. He squatted down, touched the ash, cold, old. But above the ash, a gnawed bone. Small, animal, fresher than the ash. Means the place is still used, but there hasn't been a fire for a long time. Next to the stones, a piece of bark from a tree. On it, a drawing, made with something sharp, intentional. Jinsu was not an anthropologist, but the drawing was understandable without translation. Several figures, arrows, something angular that could be a dwelling or territory. Territory marking. These are people? Asked Yunji quietly. Her voice changed, became different. Yes, said Jinsu. Locals? Locals. They. She didn't finish. I don't know yet, he said. Stood up. But we'll find out. Pause. We leave here. The same way, calmly, without running. Hannah was already turning around. They left quickly, not running, but walking quickly. Silent. Jinsu last, looked around, listened. The jungle was silent, but silent differently than before, or so it seemed to him. They stopped on the shore, caught their breath. Yunji was the first to break the silence. Maybe they are not dangerous. Maybe, said Jinsu, but you think they are dangerous. He looked at the jungle. I think I don't know yet, he said. But I will proceed from the worst, just in case. And what does that mean for our plan? Nothing changes, he said. The base is needed in any case. Maybe even more now. Yoonji looked at him for a long time. You are a strange person, she said finally. We were almost killed in a plane crash. We found cannibal traces in the jungle, and you say nothing changes as if this is a working meeting. Jinsu looked at her. Not cannibal, he said. So far just traces of presence. And the bone? Animal bone. And if they eat people? Then, he said calmly, we need a very good base. Yoonji opened her mouth, closed it, shook her head. Working meeting, she repeated. Hannah looked at both and for the first time since the crash, quietly, almost imperceptibly smiled. The third day began with the decision that Jinsu had made the night before. Not to wait, to build. Not as a temporary shelter, but as a real one. Solid. One that would withstand rain and wind, protect from what lives in the jungle, and stand for a long time. He explained to the girls in the morning briefly, point by point. The stages are as follows. First, tools. Without tools, there is nothing to build with. Second, clearing the clearing. Third, foundation and walls. Fourth, roof. Fifth, perimeter. Then farm, supplies, improvements. How much time? Asked Hannah. First stage today, if we work well. Tools from what? From what we have. He laid out the finds in front of them. Swiss knife, metal tube, bolts, wire, pieces of metal from plane debris. We have a knife. We will make an axe. Hammer. We will find a suitable stone. Saw from a metal strip from the debris. Do you know how to make an axe? Asked Yoonji. I've seen how they are made, he said. That's not the same. No, but I'll try. The axe took 3 hours. He found the right stone on the shore. Flint-like, flat on one side and sharp on the other by nature. He worked it with another stone methodically, without haste. Knocked off the excess, sharpened the edge. Yoonji watched the first half hour, then she couldn't stand it. Took a second stone and began to help. Awkwardly but diligently. Are you learning? Asked Jinsu without raising his eyes. I'm watching how you do it, she said. That's not the same. She laughed unexpectedly for herself shortly. Fair enough. The handle was a straight branch of hardwood, split at the end. He inserted the stone into the split, tied it with wire from the debris, tightly several layers, ready. He took the axe, tested it, hit the trunk of a small tree nearby. He felled the tree not with the first blow, but with the fifth. But he felled it. It works, said Hannah. It works, he agreed. All this time, Hannah was doing something else, methodically searching the remaining debris on the shore that they hadn't had time to examine. She brought several finds that turned out to be useful. A piece of aluminum cladding with a sharp edge that, when used correctly, worked as a scraper. Several meters of thick nylon rope from the cargo compartment. A small wrench from the maintenance kit, unclear how it ended up on the shore, but it did. You search well, he said. I'm an accountant, she said. We are used to finding what is hidden. By the evening of the third day, they had the following. 1 stone axe working, aluminum scraper. Hammer. Stone on a handle using the same scheme as the axe. 30 meters of nylon rope, plus 30 from the tourist backpack. Folding shovel, not much. But with this, it was already possible to build. Tomorrow we start the clearing, said Jinsu. They ate less than the day before, saved more strictly. He didn't say it aloud, but both understood themselves. Yeonji was the first to say, we need different food, not what was left from the plane. Yes, he said. Fish? Fish. Plus fruits, there should be some here. Plus what the farm will give later. How do we catch fish without a rod? We'll make a rod. Wire for the line? Hook, bend and sharpen a bolt. Pole for the rod. When? After the first floor of the base. And hunting? Asked Hannah. Monkeys, birds, said Jinsu. A spear can be made from a long branch with a sharpened end. But hunting is later. First a roof over our heads. Priorities, said Hannah, always. At night they took turns on watch again. This time he listened to the jungle especially attentively. Everything was quiet. But in the third hour of the night, far away, very far, in the very depths of the island he heard a sound. Rhythmic, low, similar to a drum. It lasted 5 minutes, then it died down. He sat and listened to the silence after. So they exist. So there are several of them. A drum is not one person, so they are far away for now. He threw a branch into the fire. Thought about the report the boss was waiting for on Friday. Smiled. The report can wait, he said quietly, and began to think about how to set up the walls. The fourth day. Work. Real, physical, from morning until dark. Jinsu explained the plan again, already in detail, with sizes and order. Not because the girls didn't understand, but so that all three saw one picture. The main house 6 by 8 meters. Wooden walls made of vertically dug logs tightly. Sloping roof, palm leaf, then external perimeter. A separate wall around the entire clearing 2 meters high. Between the house and the perimeter, working space. Here later the farm, workshop, place for fire. This is a lot for 3, said Eunji. Long, he agreed. But correct. Where do we start? With the trees. Cutting trees with a stone axe is not the same as with a chainsaw. It is slow, hard, and the first 2 trees Jinsu felled, spending so much effort that in the evening his hands almost didn't rise. But on the third he found the rhythm, not strength, technique, angle of the blow, use of the stone's weight, not muscles. He remembered how in the army the survival instructor, a small wiry warrant officer from Siberia, said, "Don't chop, swing. You don't need to break the tree, you need to rock it." He began to work differently. It became easier. Yoonji cleaned the felled trunks of branches with the aluminum scraper and knife. Monotonous work, patient. She did it silently, focused, and did it well. Hannah dug with the shovel, made holes for the perimeter foundation posts, even deep, 60 centimeters. The soil here was soft, moist. By noon, 7 logs were ready. Enough for 1 span of wall, said Jinsu. Slowly, said Eunji. Normal for the first day. He looked at the 7 even logs, cleaned, ready. In the army with chainsaws and a crane, such volume would take an hour. Here, half a day. But it was their work, their tools, their hands. There was something right in that. Break, he said. Food, water, 10 minutes. They ate in the shade. They were silent. A pleasant silence of people tired from common work. Yoonji took off her shoes and massaged her foot. Hannah drank water slowly in small sips. I thought this would be scarier, said Yoonji suddenly. What? Asked Jinsu. All this. She waved her hand at the jungle, the clearing, the logs. I thought I would be in panic. Pause, and I'm like, I don't know, just working. That's normal, he said. Psychologically normal? Practically normal, he said. Panic is useless. The body knows this faster than the head. Hannah looked at him. Do you think so or feel so? He thought. Both, he said. After the break, they continued. In the second half of the day, they began to set the first posts of the house foundation perimeter. They dug the logs vertically into the holes, tamped the earth around, fastened them with horizontal crossbars of nylon rope and wooden wedges. By sunset of the first working day, 1 wall of the house foundation stood on the clearing. 4 meters long, 1 meter 20 high. A bit crooked, uneven, but it stood. Jinsu looked at it in the last light. 1 span, he said. Tomorrow 3 more, said Hannah. Tomorrow 3 more, he agreed. And then, in this silence of the tired evening, Yoonji said, There was someone there. Both turned to her. She stood and looked at the edge of the clearing at the trees on the southern side. Her face was calm but different, attentive. Where? Jinsu asked quietly. There, between those 2 tall trees. She didn't point with her hand, she spoke quietly and looked straight ahead. A silhouette. Stood and watched us. Then disappeared. How long ago? Just now. Jinsu didn't look where she was pointing. He looked at the trees in the other direction, peripheral vision covering the entire clearing. No movement. Silence. The birds on that side were silent. Birds are silent where there has just been movement. We go to the shore, he said evenly. Collect the tools, go calmly, don't run. Did they see us? Asked Hannah. Probably, he said. And what now? He took the axe, put it on his shoulder casually like a working tool. Now we build faster, he said. The night passed quietly. Too quietly. That was exactly what was wrong. The jungle that screamed with birds and crackled with insects during the day fell silent by midnight. Not gradually, abruptly, as if someone had turned off the sound. Jinsu sat by the fire and listened to the silence. 30 meters of rope he had stretched the evening before quickly, before it got dark. Perimeter around the temporary camp on the shore? Not a wall, just stretched rope on stakes half a meter from the ground, with pieces of metal from the debris tied to it. If someone touches it, it will rattle. Primitive, but better than nothing. He looked at the fire and thought, silhouette on the edge of the clearing, 1. Stood, watched, left. Didn't attack. This could mean several things. A scout came to see what kind of people reported to the others. Or just a curious one person from the tribe stumbled upon them by chance. Or part of a group they didn't notice. Unknown. The unknown is what you need to work with, not fear. He took out his phone, opened notes, began to write briefly, schematically. What we know: the island is inhabited, at least one tribe. Territory is marked, drawings on bark, old fire pits, active. Someone watched us today. Drums at night the day before yesterday means there are several people, there is organization. What we don't know: are they hostile to strangers? How many there are? How far their main settlement is? Did they see the plane? Almost certainly they did. What to do? Do not provoke. Do not go deeper into the island beyond the clearing. Build quickly. Perimeter first priority, before the roof. Closed the phone. Looked at the sleeping girls, both in the shelter, Hannah on the sleeping bag. Yoonji curled up on someone else's jacket they had found in a suitcase. Alive. Intact. Sleeping. His job was to keep it that way. Morning of the 5th day. He woke them earlier than usual when the sky was still gray, birds just beginning. We changed the order, he said without preamble. Perimeter of the clearing before the house walls. First the fence, then everything else. Hannah nodded. She thought the same. He saw by her face. Yeonji looked serious. Because of yesterday? Because of yesterday. Will they come? I don't know, he said. But if they come, it's better to have a fence. They had breakfast quickly, got ready, and went to the clearing with tools, with rope, with a supply of water. Jinsu glanced back at the shore one last time, at the signal fire that Hannah had lit before leaving. Smoke rose vertically in the windless morning air. Someone sees it there, far away. Or not. He turned away and went into the jungle. The perimeter of the clearing was the main thing. Jinsu measured the clearing with steps. It was about 70 meters in diameter. Perimeter about 220 meters. That was a lot for 3 with a stone axe. Therefore not all at once. He chose a smaller inner perimeter, 50 by 50 meters. Enough for the house, working space, small farm inside. 200 meters of fence. Realistic. He explained to the girls. They listened silently, nodded. We make the fence like this, he said. Vertical stakes sharp at the top, driven tightly into the ground, close to each other. Height 2 meters. Such a fence cannot be climbed quickly, cannot be broken with bare hands. 200 meters of such a fence, said Yoonji. That's a lot of stakes. A lot, he agreed. Let's count. Stakes 10 centimeters in diameter tightly means about 10 stakes per meter. 200 meters, 2,000 stakes. Yoonji looked at him. 2,000. Yes. With a stone axe. Yes. Silence. Okay, she said. Let's start. They worked by system. Jinsu cut trees, not big, not thin, medium. Each tree gave 2 or 3 stakes after processing. Yoonji processed the felled trunks, cut them into pieces of the right length, sharpened the end with scraper and knife. Hannah drove the ready stakes into the ground with a heavy stone like a sledgehammer, evenly, tightly. Division of labor, each does one action, doesn't switch. More efficient. First hour, 15 stakes. Slowly. Second hour, 22. Better, found the rhythm. Third, 28. Yoonji sharpened the scraper sharper. Hannah found the right angle of strike. By noon, 80 stakes. 4 meters of fence stood. Not high yet. 1 meter 20, point sticking up. Jinsu looked and counted. 80 stakes in half a day. Need 2,000. That's 25 such mornings. Too long. Needed to speed up. He thought while they ate a modest lunch. Water, nuts, several crackers. The last crackers. After today, only what they find on the island. Need a different technology, he said. What? Asked Hannah. Weaving, he said. Look. He stood up, approached the edge of the clearing, found young flexible branches, thin, long, cut several, returned. Palisade of thick stakes is only the base, every half-meter. Between them, horizontal poles, fixed. And on top, weaving from flexible branches. Like a basket, only big. He showed with his fingers how it looks, just as strong, but 5 times fewer stakes needed. Hannah looked at the improvised model. Will this hold if they push? Not a single blow, he said honestly. But to break through it will take time and tools. They most likely have wooden spears and stone knives. You won't break a woven fence quickly with that. Most likely, repeated Yoonji. Most likely, he agreed. She thought for a second. Change the plan? Change. With the woven technology, things went faster. Much faster. By the end of the 5th day, 20 meters of fence stood. Not 2 meters high, 1.5, but dense even, with sharpened stakes every half-meter. Jinsu stood and looked at the work. 20 meters out of 200. A tenth. Good, he said. Good? Yoonji looked at him with a slight laugh. We did 10%. Good because yesterday it was 0, he said. Progress is not about the finish. It's about today being more than yesterday. She looked at him for a second. Do you always think like that? I try. Does it help? Today, yes, he said. On the 6th day, they found food. Hannah discovered it first. She went for water to the stream and noticed on the way. A not very tall palm with green fruits in the crown. Not coconut, another, local. Fruits small, oval. Jinsu climbed up. The trunk not thick, could be hugged with hands. Cut several fruits. Tried carefully, a small piece on the tip of the tongue. Sourish, not bitter. Good sign. Slightly astringent. We wait an hour, he said. Why? Asked Yoonji, checking the reaction. If something goes wrong, I'll know not to eat it. What? You deliberately try a questionable fruit? Someone has to, he said simply. I already tried. It's unreasonable to risk all 3. Yoonji looked at him. That's noble. And a little crazy. In an hour, we'll say which of the 2. In an hour, everything was normal. Hour. Stomach didn't hurt, head didn't spin, nothing on the skin. We eat, said Jinsu. They ate right there by the palm, all 3. Sour, juicy fruits after days of crackers and canned food seemed incredibly tasty. 3 more such palms and I'm a happy person, said Yoonji with a full mouth. We look for them after work, said Jinsu. After work, she echoed. Of course, after work. But she smiled. That same day, they found something else. Jinsu was looking for flexible branches for weaving, walked along the edge of the clearing, cut the needed ones, went a little further than usual, and saw tracks. Fresh, ground moist, print clear, human foot, barefoot, no shoes. Size small, no more than 40th. One track, then another. Then they went into the jungle. He stood over the tracks and looked. Fresh. Today's, maybe morning, maybe an hour old. Small foot, young or short person. Watched how we build. Again. He didn't call the girls, remembered the place, returned to work. In the evening by the fire, he said briefly, saw tracks today, fresh, someone watched us. Silence. Every day? Asked Hannah. Probably. They don't attack. No. Why? I don't know, he said. Maybe they are studying us. Maybe waiting for something. Maybe they have rules, not to touch until the boundary is violated. What boundary? Asked Yoonji. That's why we need a perimeter, he said, so that our boundary is visible. Clearly, here is ours. Further is yours. Will this help? Most tribes have respect for someone else's territory, he said. A visible boundary is a language everyone understands. And if it doesn't help? Then we will have a fence, said Jinsu. The next 12 days, work. Clean, heavy, methodical work from dawn to sunset. Jinsu didn't keep a detailed diary. Just noted in the phone every evening. What was done, what tomorrow, what changed. He allowed himself to read these notes on the 17th day. Day 6. Fence 35 meters. Found a palm with fruits. Tracks by the clearing. They are watching. Hannah started a fishing rod from wire. Yoonji learned to chop. Improvement in speed. Day 7. Fence 52 meters. First fish. Hannah caught 3 small river ones in the stream. Fried on coals, tasty. Found 2 more palms with fruits and a tree with something like wild bananas. Small, sour, but edible. At night, drums closer than before. Day 8. Fence 70 meters. Started the house foundation. 4 corner posts dug in, first horizontal beams. Yoonji found clay by the stream bank. Idea to smear the gaps in the walls. Works. Saw tracks again. Now already 2, different foot sizes. Day 9. Fence 90 meters. Half. House walls 1.5 meters on 3 sides. Hannah catches fish daily. 5 or 6 pieces, this is our main protein. Made a spear, long branch, end sharpened and hardened on fire. Now each has a weapon, gave Yoonji the metal tube, Hannah the knife. Day 10. Rain. Strong all day. Worked despite it. Got wet, but filled all containers with water. Now reserve about 30 liters. Discovered that the woven fence under rain swells a little and becomes denser. Good. Made an awning by the house wall. Palm leaves on horizontal poles. Under it, dry. Day 11. Fence 130 meters. House walls fully. 4 walls 2 meters high. Started the roof. Yoonji came up with reinforcement for the woven fence. Diagonal branches woven crosswise. Stronger. She knows how to think spatially. Designer, after all. Day 12. Roof ready. Sloping palm leaf in 4 layers. Holds under rain. Inside dry, checked under evening rain. Slept the first night in a real house. Quiet, warm, without wind. Yoonji said, "This is the best house I've lived in." Laughed. We all laughed. Hadn't laughed for a long time. Day 13. Fence 170 meters. Started the workshop. Separate awning inside the perimeter. Their tools, their work. Found the stream's exit to the shore. Can make a diversion right to the base perimeter. Water close. Hannah began planning beds. She knows gardening, says she did it with grandmother in childhood. Day 14. Night incident. At 2 o'clock at night, noise on the eastern side of the perimeter. I woke up earlier than the signal rope rang, simply heard. Went out with the spear. Dark. Heard movement in the bushes outside the perimeter, stood and waited. Nothing happened. In about 10 minutes they left. In the morning by the eastern fence found a stuck spear. Wooden with a bone tip. Just stood in the ground outside. Jin-soo closed the notes. Looked at the spear, he brought it to the camp, placed it by the workshop wall. Studied it for a long time. Fine work. Bone sharpened neatly, tied tightly. These are not savages, these are people with skills and traditions. The stuck spear was a sign. He had read about it once in some peoples. Left weapon means warning. In others, a challenge. In third, marking of someone else's territory. What it means here, unknown. Is this bad? Asked Unji in the evening when he told them. This is communication, he said. They are telling us something. What exactly, we'll figure out. How? We'll answer, he said. How do you answer a stuck spear, he thought. I don't know yet, he said, but we'll come up with something. The next morning, Jin-soo got up before dawn. Took the spear, not his, theirs. Went outside the perimeter alone. Hannah wanted to go with him. He refused. If 2 or 3, it's a squad. 1, it's a messenger. Or a sacrifice, she said. We'll see which of the 2. He went out through a small passage in the fence that he had left specially. The only entrance easily blocked by a log. Closed it behind him. Went to the eastern side of the clearing, to where they came from at night. Stopped 2 meters from the edge of the trees. Stuck their spear back into the ground where he took it from. Neatly, vertically, as it stood. Stepped back a step. Took out his spear. Stuck his own next to it, homemade from a stick with a burned end. Placed them parallel, the same. 2 spears, side by side, stood. Looked into the dark trees. The jungle was silent. Birds were just waking up. First voices in the crowns. He turned around, went back to the base, didn't hurry, didn't look back. Entered through the passage, closed with the log. And that's all? Asked Yoonji. And that's all. What did that mean? Your spear next to mine, he said. Not against. Side by side. Pause. We'll see how they read it. The answer came on the 3rd day. They were working. The fence was almost finished. 20 meters left. Yoonji was weaving, Hannah driving stakes, Jin-soo chopping the next tree. He heard first, not noise, voice, human, male, saying something in a language Jin-soo didn't understand. once loudly. All three froze. Jinsu slowly put down the axe, took the spear calmly without sharp movements. "Stay here," he said quietly. "Don't move." Approached the eastern fence, looked through the gaps in the weaving. On the edge of the clearing beyond the fence stood a man. Not tall, dark-skinned, muscular. About 30, hard to say. Loincloth of leather, beads of animal teeth around the neck, spear in hand. Holds it vertically, tip up, not a combat position. Looked at the fence, at Jinsu through the gaps. They looked at each other for several seconds. Then the man slowly raised his free hand palm forward. Open palm, empty hand. Jinsu looked at him, then slowly raised his own hand too, open palm forward, through the weaving of the fence. The man looked, then lowered his hand. Said something short, one word. Turned, went into the jungle. Jinsu stood by the fence for another minute, listened as the steps receded, then silence. Returned to the girls. "What was that?" asked Yunji. She looked through the gaps from the other side. "Negotiations," said Jinsu. "Successful?" "I don't know yet." He took the axe, but he came with an open palm. "That's good." "And left without attack," said Hannah. "That's better," he agreed. Day 18. Jinsu stood in the center of the perimeter and looked. Fence 200 meters, 2 meters high, dense weaving with diagonal reinforcement, sharp stakes on top every half meter. Only entrance, eastern side, heavy log bolt. From inside by the entrance, constant supply of stakes as reserve weapons. House 6 by 8 meters, log walls 1 meter 20, on top weaving and clay plaster. Sloping roof, palm leaf, 4 layers, doesn't leak. Inside 3 sleeping places from cut poles with mats from palm leaf, water storage, food storage, workshop, separate awning by the northern wall. Their tools already not 2 items, more than 20. Stone axe, hammer, scrapers of different sizes, several sharp stakes as chisels, woven baskets for storage, clay pots. Imperfect. The first few cracked during firing, but the 4th and 5th held water. Small farm in the southwestern corner of the perimeter. Hannah cleared and plowed with the shovel a plot of land 3 by 5 meters. Planted for now only what they found. Tubers of a wild plant similar to taro, several types of leafy greens that she identified as eatable by smell and appearance. Watered from the stream that Jinsu had diverted to the base with a small ditch reinforced with stones. Water supply, the diversion from the stream entered through a small hole in the northern wall of the perimeter. The flow was weak but constant. The reservoir, a pit lined with clay, held about 50 liters of water. The observation platform, he built at last. On the eastern wall where that man had appeared from. A platform of poles 1 meter by 1 meter, at a height of 2.5 meters. From it, the jungle was visible for about 30 meters. Jinsu stood in the center of all this and thought. 18 days. 3 people, a stone axe, 0 technology. Well... Yunji approached and stood next to him. Looked in the same direction as he did. "There is still work," he said. "Of course there is," she said. "But look at what already exists." He looked. The house, the fence, the farm, the workshop, water. "Do you know what I thought yesterday?" said Yunji. "What?" "That I don't want to leave." He looked at her. She was smiling, not widely, but genuinely. "Strange, right?" she said. "A month ago I was flying to Boracay because I finally wanted to rest. 3 years without a proper vacation." Pause. "And it turned out that rest is this. Doing something with your hands. Building, seeing how it grows." "This is not a vacation," said Jinsu. "No," she agreed. "Better." Hannah approached with fish on a homemade stringer, 4 pieces. "Dinner," she said. "Good ones," said Jinsu. "Larger than usual. Found a place in the stream where they stand in the shade. There are always bigger ones there." They went to the workshop. Hannah cleaned the fish quickly, already habitual. Yunji lit the fire. She no longer needed to be taught. Jinsu cut greens from the farm. They cooked in silence, a pleasant silence of people who had been doing a common thing for a long time. Jinsu thought about what Yunji had said. "I don't want to leave." He didn't say it aloud but realized he thought similarly. 5 years of conveyor, tables, business trips, 6 hours of sleep. And for the first time in 5 years, he went to bed in the evening with the feeling that the day had passed correctly, that he had done what was needed with his hands here now. Ate when he was hungry, Slept when it was dark. Built while it was light. Simple, right? He caught himself on this thought and stopped it. Because there were girls who needed to go home. There was a life that was waiting. There was a family for Hannah. She had mentioned it briefly once. His job was not just to survive, to return them home. But for now, he cooked the fish and ate, and looked at the stars above the open space inside the perimeter. On the 21st day, they came. Not one person, several. Jin-soo was on the observation platform. Morning watch, his habit. He saw movement in the jungle first, 3, then 2 more, then more. The figures moved toward the clearing from the eastern forest side. They weren't hiding, they walked openly. He descended, woke the girls quietly, briefly. They are coming, several, eastern side. Take your weapons, stand by the workshop. There you are, visible from the entrance, but there is cover from the wall side. What will you do? Asked Hannah. Meet them. Took the spear, approached the eastern entrance, removed the bolt slowly without fuss, opened it, stood in the opening. There were 7 of them. The same man who had come before was in front. Behind him, 6 more. Different ages, 2 young, almost children, all with spears. One had a bow over his shoulder. They stopped about 10 meters from the entrance, looked at the base, at the fence, at the house, at the workshop. Looked for a long time. Then the same man who had come before said something to his own. Briefly, one word. Those lowered their spears, tips down. Jin-soo slowly lowered his. The man took a step forward, stopped, pointed with his hand at the base, then at himself. May I enter? Jin-soo thought for a second, then stepped aside, clearing the passage. The man entered, alone. The rest remained outside. He walked around the perimeter of the base slowly, looked at everything, touched the house wall with his fingers, checking the weaving, looked at the pots in the workshop, at the shovel, at the fish that Hannah had hung to dry on a rope under the awning yesterday. Yoonji and Hannah stood by the workshop. Yoonji held the tube, Hannah the knife, but calmly, without threat. The man approached the farm, squatted down, looked at the greening sprouts, then raised his gaze to Hannah, said something. Hannah looked uncomprehending. He is asking about the plants, said Jin-soo. Not because he understood the words, but because he read the gesture. What is this? How do you know? Asked Unji. By the way he looks. Hannah squatted down next to the man by the bed, showed with her hands how she had planted, how she watered, how the sprout came out of the ground. The man looked attentively, then for the first time nodded, stood up, looked at Jin-soo, said something slowly, syllable by syllable, as if he understood they wouldn't understand but spoke anyway. Then turned, went to the exit, stopped at the opening, looked back, open palm again. Jin-soo answered the same. The man left. His people followed, dissolved into the jungle silently and quickly. The 3 stood inside the perimeter and looked at the empty entrance opening. What was that? Asked Yoonji. An agreement, said Jin-soo. What kind? I don't know exactly yet, he said, but he came without a weapon in his hands, left without threat, looked at us, at how we live. Pause. This is Reconnaissance. But peaceful. They won't attack? Not now, he said. Why? Jin-soo looked at the jungle. Because we showed that we can build, he said. Can grow food, can make tools. Pause. For any tribe, such people are more useful alive than dead or as food. Silence. This is cynical logic, said Yoonji. Working, said Jin-soo. He closed the entrance, lowered the bolt, turned to the base. We expand the farm, he said. If they saw the garden, then this is an argument. The more we plant, the stronger the argument. Hannah was already going for the shovel. The calm lasted 7 days. Visits became regular. The same man, sometimes with 1 or 2 people, came to the perimeter. Didn't enter anymore, just stood outside, looked. Sometimes left something at the entrance. Once a fruit they hadn't seen before, once a piece of rope from some fiber stronger than their nylon. Gifts? Exchange? Signs? Jin-soo accepted, left something of his in return. Once a clay pot, crooked but working. Once fish on a stringer, 5 pieces. A silent trading post. Contact was being established. Slow, careful, without words. Language of gestures, objects, distance. And then on the 28th night, others came. Jin-soo woke from the sound. Metallic ring, signal rope at the western wall. Then again. Then silence. He lay for a second without moving. Listened. Rustle outside the perimeter, western side, where the forest came closest to the fence. Not those who had come before. Those came from the east. Always. He got up silently. Took the spear. Touched Hannah's shoulder, she woke instantly. Showed with a gesture, quiet western wall. Then Yunji. She slept more soundly, had to shake her. Opened her eyes, saw his face, immediately became different, collected. All three to the western wall. Jinsu climbed onto the platform. He had made a second one at the western wall last week. A premonition. Carefully. Looked down over the top edge of the fence. Dark. Moon behind clouds. But he could make out. Two outside by the fence. One felt the weaving with his hands, looking for a weak spot. The second stood behind him, looking toward the east, not toward the base. Lookout. They work in pairs, the jungle behind them dark. How many more there? Unknown. Jinsu didn't shout, didn't warn. Thought quickly. If they left quietly, nothing happened. If they found a weak spot, they would return with a larger group. Couldn't just wait. He descended from the platform, quietly told the girls. Two outside, western wall, feeling the fence. Pause. Hannah to the eastern entrance, stand there, watch if there are more from that side. Yunji here by the wall. If they break in, you shout. And you? Whispered Yunji. I go out. Alone? 2 against 1 is noise they will hear from afar. 1 is quiet. He approached the eastern entrance, not the western where they stood. The eastern was on the other side. Removed the bolt, went out. Night. Warm, humid, cicadas. Moon behind cloud. He walked along the outer side of the perimeter clockwise. Slowly, on the grass, silently. Spear horizontal with both hands. Turned to the corner. Saw both with their backs to him. The one feeling the fence had found a place where the weaving was weaker. Pulling. The second looked in the other direction. Jinsu took 3 steps forward. Hit the first on the back of the head with the spear shaft. Not the tip, the butt. Dull blow, strong enough. That one fell without sound. The second turned around. Saw Jinsu. Spear at his throat, tip a centimeter from the skin. Pause. The man looked at him. Young, 18 to 20. Eyes wide with surprise. Spear in hand, but not raising it. Drop it, said Jinsu quietly. That one didn't understand the words, but understood the intonation, understood the spear at his throat. Slowly lowered his weapon, placed it on the ground. Jinsu looked at him. Then one movement, stepped back a step. Removed the spear, showed an open palm. The man looked, then lifted his comrade. That one came to, shook his head. Alive, intact, just stunned. Both looked at Jinsu. He pointed with his hand toward the jungle. Go. They left. Quickly, almost ran. He stood outside the perimeter and listened as the steps faded. Then picked up their spear from the ground. Returned to the eastern entrance. Entered. Closed the bolt. The girls stood inside, both looked at him. All done? Asked Yunji. All done. You went out alone at night to 2 armed men. Yes, and? They left. Yunji looked at him for a long time. I want to say, she said slowly, that in the last 4 weeks you haven't done anything once that I would have advised doing. And you haven't been wrong once. Yet, he said. What does yet mean? Means we don't relax, he said. Tomorrow we strengthen the western wall. Hannah was already going back to bed. I thought you'd say that, she said over her shoulder. Morning of the 29th day. Jinsu sat on the observation platform and looked at the horizon. The ocean calm, blue. The signal fire on the shore burned. They maintained it every morning and evening without exception. Smoke went up. No ships, no helicopters, almost a month. He opened the phone. Charge 8%, almost dead. Opened notes. The last entry was 3 days ago. He had written it in the evening after the visit of that man from the east. I think that they are no longer looking for us or are looking in the wrong place. I think about what to do if this is forever. Forever is a different horizon, different tasks. What is needed if forever? More food. Expand the farm threefold, more water, increase the reservoir, medicine. So-young would know. Hannah read about it, says some plants are antiseptic. Protection. Strengthen the western wall. Think about ditches. Contact with the locals. Language at least basic. Trade. And one more thing. The most important. They must want to stay alive not just because it is scary to die, but because there is something here worth it. He closed the phone, looked at the base from below. The house real, warm, the farm greening, the workshop full of tools. The fence stands. Beyond this fence, the jungle. In the jungle, people complex, misunderstood, dangerous, but people, with whom one can talk. Slowly, without words, through fruits and spears and open palms. And 3 people inside the perimeter. He heard Unji humming something quietly in the workshop to herself while weaving a basket. Saw Hannah watering the beds carefully, from a ladle, each sprout separately. Alive. Real. Jinsu sat on the platform and thought about the table that hadn't added up on the plane. About the business trip to Manila. About the boss who waited for the report. That was long ago, he thought. Or it seems long ago. Then he took out the last tool he had made 3 days ago and hadn't shown the girls yet. A small wooden board, flat, carefully planed. On it with charcoal neatly. A list, not tasks, not a plan. Just words, what they had done. Day 1, fire. Day 2, water. Day 3, place. Day 18, house. Day 21, first guest. Day 28, first night watch. Chronicle, he added today's day. Day 29, I look at the horizon, no ships. There are 3 of us alive and intact. The base stands, closed his eyes for a second. The sun warmed his face, morning, not harsh yet. Jinsu. He opened his eyes. Yunji stood below by the platform, looking up. What? Hannah says that on the northern section of the farm something new has sprouted. We didn't plant it ourselves. I'm coming. He descended from the platform, went to the farm. The horizon behind his back was empty as always. But ahead were the beds with new sprouts. There was Hannah, who had squatted down and touched the earth with her hands. There was Yunji, who watched him walk and smiled slightly. There was this day, and tomorrow would be too. The 30th day began with rain. Not an ordinary tropical downpour that lasted an hour and left, a real prolonged one from the night. Jinsu woke at 4 in the morning from the drum beat on the roof and realized it would last long. Lay and listened. The roof held. 4 layers of palm leaf laid overlapping like tiles, inside dry. Walls not leaking, the clay plaster they had applied 3 times, each layer thinner than the previous, worked. The first real test for the house. The house passed. He got up, approached the door, opened it, looked. The yard inside the perimeter, puddles but no flooding. The relief he had calculated correctly, water went to the northern corner where he had made a small drainage channel. The farm covered with an awning of leaves that Hannah had come up with herself last week. The workshop under the awning, dry. He closed the door, returned. Yunji wasn't sleeping, lay with open eyes looking at the ceiling. Do you hear? She said quietly. What? The rain, but not on us. He understood. She meant the rain outside, them inside. The difference that a month ago it was impossible to feel because there was nothing to compare it to. Good house, he said. Very good, she agreed. Hannah behind the partition. They had made a partition from weaving, divided the space into 3 parts, each had their own part already moving. It was audible how she got up, put on shoes. Need to check the farm, she said without entering. Covered, said Jinsu. Lie down some more. Paused. Don't want to lie down. Hannah was like that. If she woke up, she got up. Couldn't lie idle physically. Then collect water, he said. Rain is a good chance to replenish the reservoir. This was a plan they had discussed long ago. Rainwater collection system. Palm leaves as a gutter, water flowed along them into the reservoir. Jinsu had made the structure a week ago, hadn't tested it yet in real rain. Hannah went out. He heard her steps, then the sound of water filling the reservoir faster than from the stream. It works, she shouted from behind the door. I know, he said. Yunji laughed quietly but heartily. You always say I know like that, as if you never doubt. I doubt, he said, just silently. What do you doubt? He thought. About the western wall, he said. It is weaker than the eastern. Those 2 at night found it in a minute. Means they are smart enough. They will return with a larger group and find it again. When will we strengthen? After the rain. Silence. Only rain on the roof. Jinsu, said Yunji. Yes. Can I ask a personal question? You can. Do you think about what was before? Before the island? He thought for a second. Sometimes. Do you miss it? long pause. Some things, he said honestly. Hot shower, normal coffee, books, pause, not the work. Really? Work was a way not to think about not having time to live, he said. Here there is no time not to think. Here you live and do everything at the same time. Silence. That's the smartest thing you've said in a month, said Yoonji. In a month I said a lot of smart things. No, usually you say practical. This is different. He smirked. The rain went until noon. On the 32nd day, that man came again, alone, as usual. But this time he brought something different. Not a fruit, not rope. He brought a child, small, about 7 years old, no more. A boy, dark-haired, looked at the base with huge eyes, held the man's hand tightly, but not out of fear, out of curiosity. They stood at the entrance. Jinsu looked at them from the platform. What does this mean? Asked Eunji from below quietly so they wouldn't hear outside. I don't know, said Jinsu, but you don't take a child with you to a hostile meeting. He descended, approached the entrance, opened it. The man stood as always calmly, looked at Jinsu, then lowered his gaze to the boy, said something to him quietly. The boy stepped forward, one step straight to Jinsu, raised his hand. In his hand a fruit, small, yellow, unfamiliar, held it out. Jinsu squatted down to be at the same level as the child, took the fruit, looked at it, then at the boy. The boy said something, a short word, pointed at the fruit. Is that the name? Asked Jinsu to himself. Repeated as best he could, approximately. The boy looked at him, then unexpectedly laughed, almost soundlessly but genuinely, covered his mouth with his hand. Jinsu had pronounced it wrong, funny, and the child felt it. The man behind the boy also changed. Corners of his lips, not quite a smile. Again, said Jinsu to the boy. That one repeated slower, clearer. Jinsu repeated. The boy nodded. Correct. Jinsu stood up, looked at the man, showed a gesture to the base. Come in. Waited. The man looked, then nodded. Both entered, the man and the boy. The next 2 hours changed everything. The boy's name, as far as Jinsu could make out, was Rano, or something close to that. He was curious without fear, walked around the base, touched everything with his hands, asked questions no one understood. But by intonation it was clear they were questions. Yoonji took care of him immediately, sat him down, gave a clay bowl and a stick, showed how to mold. Rano looked for a second, then began himself. Concentrated, tongue out. The man, his name, as they understood later, was Toa, sat by the workshop and watched Jinsu work. That day, Jinsu was making a new tool, wooden rake for the farm, tines from branches. Worked slowly on purpose, showed every step. Toe observed, then held out his hand, gesture give. Jinsu handed it over. Toa took the rake, held it, felt the balance, touched the tines, then said something questioningly. Jinsu didn't understand the word. With a gesture asked what exactly was unclear. Toa pointed at the tines, how they were held. The rope with which Jinsu had tied them to the base. Fastening, said Jinsu in Korean. Showed how, slowly, step by step. A special knot that held better than simple winding. Toe looked, nodded, then took the end of the rope and repeated the knot. Faster than Jinsu expected, more precisely. Good, said Jinsu. Toa looked at him, said something. Jinsu didn't understand, but the intonation was like, obviously. Hana all this time sat opposite Toa at a distance, not interfering, and did what she knew best, observed and recorded. She had no paper, but there was a piece of light bark and charcoal. She recorded words. Every word that Toe or the boy said she wrote down in Korean phonetics next to a small drawing of the object. By the end of 2 hours, she had 23 words. When Toe stood up to leave, she approached him, showed the bark. He looked at the signs uncomprehendingly. She showed this sign, this object, pointed at the pot, showed the sign she had written for pot, pronounced their word. Toei looked, then pointed at the pot, said their word. Hana repeated exactly. Toa looked at her differently, more attentively, pointed at the knife, said the word. Hana recorded, repeated. He nodded, pointed at the fire in the hearth. Word. She is learning the language, said Yoonji quietly. Yes, said Jinsu. In 2 hours. Starting to learn, he corrected. This is a dictionary. Language is grammar. She will learn grammar too, said Yoonji confidently. Towa and Rano left when the sun began to set early, before sunset. Toei stopped at the exit, as always. Open palm. Then added something new, a word he hadn't said before. Hana immediately recorded it. They left. What did he say? Asked Yoonji. I don't know yet, said Hana, looked at the record, but tomorrow I'll find out. The next 10 days, Hana learned the language. Not metaphorically, literally. Every visit from To, and he now came every other day, sometimes with the boy, sometimes with someone else. Hana worked. Recorded, repeated, checked. On the third day, she pronounced the first phrase, simple of 2 words. To stopped. Looked at her, said something long quickly. She raised her hand, stop. Slower. He repeated slower, word by word. She recorded. On the 5th day, dialogue. Primitive of 5 or 6 words from each side, but dialogue. Jinsu observed and thought that this resembled an engineering task. Find the system, find patterns, build a structure. Hana approached the language like accounting, methodically, without gaps, checked every new rule on several examples before accepting it. On the 10th day, she translated. Toei said something, a long phrase pointing west. Hana listened. Then slowly, without rushing, he says, there on the west of the island, there is another tribe. Pause, checked something in her records. They are not like his people. Another pause. I don't understand one word, either dangerous or wild or evil. Something like that. All 3 looked at Toa. He looked west, to where the night guest had come from. Face serious. Not fear, warning. Those 2 at night, said Jinsu. His enemies? Asked Unji. Hana asked Toa briefly, 1 word. He answered, and his answer was long. Hana listened, translated gradually in pieces. His tribe and that tribe, long, not together. She frowned at unfamiliar words. Earlier there was 1 people. Then something happened. They split. Now border. West theirs, east his. Pause. We stand on the border, almost exactly. Silence. And what will happen to us? Asked Yoonji. Hana asked. Toa answered briefly, 1 word. Depends, translated Hana. On what? Again question, again answer. Hana looked at her records, then raised her gaze. On whose side we choose. In the evening, a long conversation by the fire. To left. The 3 of them sat in the workshop. Fire in the hearth, outside cicadas chirped. Quiet as it had become every evening now. Neutrality, said Jinsu. He said it is impossible? Asked Unji. No. He said it depends on our choice, said Hana. That doesn't mean neutrality is impossible. Maybe he simply didn't consider such an option. Because for them it is not an option, said Jinsu. 1 island, 2 hostile tribes, no neutrals. We appeared and immediately became a resource or a threat. For both, said Hana. For both, he confirmed. The western ones came at night to feel our wall, said Yoonji. That is not a neutral signal. No, the eastern ones, Toa, come openly with a child with gifts. Yes. Then what to choose? Caution, said Jinsu. Toa may be conscientious or clever. These are different things. Pause. Friendship with one tribe is automatically war with the other. And if war comes anyway? Asked Hana. If the western ones decide we are already enemies? Then it's good we have a fence, said Jinsu, and that there are only 3 of us against a whole tribe, said Yoonji. Yes? Silence. So the base, said Yoonji. Not a question, a conclusion. We make the base stronger, much stronger, before deciding anything. Yes, said Jinsu. What exactly? He stood up, approached the wall of the workshop where his wooden chronicle board hung. Next to it, another board on which he had been drawing the base plan for the last week, from top to bottom with dimensions. Showed it. A ditch, he said, around the entire perimeter outside the fence. 1 meter 20 deep, 1 meter wide. Sharpened stakes at the bottom pointing down. Across the ditch, a bridge at the entrance that can be removed. How much to dig? Asked Yoonji. 200 meters in length, 1 meter in width, 1 meter 20 in depth, he said. A lot. Again a lot. But after that I want to sleep peacefully, he said simply. Yoonji looked at the plan. What else? An observation tower, he said. Now the platforms are 2.5 meters. We need a real tower at the entrance, 5 or 6 meters. To see the island far, 5 meters high without metal and concrete, said Yoonji. Wooden log structures were built like that for 1,000 years, said Jinsu. Logs on top of logs, tied together, stable. Anything else? A second exit, he said. If the western wall falls, we need a way to leave. Hidden, camouflaged. On the northern side. Hannah recorded on her bark neatly. Weapons? She added without raising her eyes. Yes, said Jinsu. Bows. Toa has a bow, I saw it. So there is suitable wood on the island. We need to find it, bend it, string from, he thought, from that fibrous rope that Toa brought. Strong. Do you know how to make a bow? Asked Yoonji. I've seen how they are made. They made them, she interrupted. I know. We've seen how they are made. This time I read about it, he said. Army Survival Manual. Chapter 14. Remember Chapter 14 of the Army Manual? I read a lot on planes, he said. Yoonji looked at him, shook her head. Okay, she said. Do we start with the ditch? We start with the ditch. Digging a ditch is not interesting. It is monotonous, hard, slow, and after the first day, every muscle you thought you had hurts. But Jinsu dug. He measured the perimeter outside the fence, 1 meter from the wall, stuck in pegs, stretched the rope a straight line, started with a shovel. The topsoil was soft, came out well. Lower, denser, even lower, clayey, heavy. Yoonji worked next to him. Jinsu had made a second tool, something between a hoe and a scraper, from a flat stone on a handle. She loosened, he scooped the earth with the shovel. Hannah carried, filled woven baskets and took the earth aside. Didn't throw it away, stacked it by the northern wall of the perimeter. Why there? Asked Yoonji at the end of the first day. An embankment, said Jinsu. From this earth we make a rampart inside the perimeter by the western wall. 0.5 meter high, additional protection from inside. You think 3 steps ahead. I try for 5, he said. For the first day, 8 meters of ditch, 0.5 meter deep, little. But then To came. He came at the usual time, before noon, alone. Saw the ditch, stopped, looked, then looked at Jinsu. Said something, Hannah translated. Why the pit? Protection, said Jinsu. Hannah translated. To looked at the ditch, at the depth, at the direction, asked something else. From whom protection? Translated Hannah. He knows. Jinsu thought for a second. From everyone, he said. Hannah translated. Toha looked at him for a long time, then said one word briefly. Smart, translated Hannah. The next day, To came with 3 people. They brought tools, stone, but good, better than what Jinsu had made himself. Sharp hoes, something like a spade with a wide flat stone. Stood next to them, started digging. Yoonji looked at this, at the people from the tribe who calmly worked next to them, and said nothing. Only once quietly to Jinsu. Did you plan this? No, he said, but not surprised. No. Why? Because smart people like smart things, he said. And a ditch is a smart thing. They understand why. With 5 additional people, the ditch went faster. Much faster. In 5 days, 200 meters, 1 meter 20 deep. Ready! Jinsu stood by the finished ditch and looked. To stood next to him. Good, said To in his language. Good, agreed Jinsu. They looked at the ditch together. Then Toa said something, longer than usual. Hannah listened, translated slowly. He says, the western ones saw how we were digging. Pause. He says they, are angry. That word. Another pause. They will come soon. Not 1 and not 2. Many. Silence. When? Asked Jinsu. Hannah translated. Toei answered. He doesn't know exactly, said Hannah. Says in a few days, maybe earlier. Jinsu looked at the ditch, at the fence behind it. At the tower they had started 3 days ago. 4 meters so far, not finished. We need to speed up, he said. The tower? Asked Yoonji. The tower, the bridge across the ditch, the bow? The bow hasn't been made yet. We start today. To listened. He didn't understand the words, but understood the tone. said something to his 3 people. They nodded. What did he say to them? Asked Yunji. Hannah asked. He said she translated slowly that they are staying to help. Everyone looked at Toa. He looked at Jinsu openly, directly. Jinsu looked at him. Ally, he thought. Not neutrality. Ally. He nodded to Toa. Toa nodded back. Okay, said Jinsu. We build the tower. The tower grew in 3 days. 6 meters, 4 powerful posts at the corners, horizontal crossbars every 1.5 meters, ladder rungs on the eastern post. At the top, a 2x2 meter platform, railings from poles. Simple roof from rain. From a height of 6 meters, the whole island was visible in a radius. Jungle, shore, a piece of western sky above the crowns. Jinsu made the bow on the 2nd day. Wooden from a young trunk that To himself pointed out, string from the fiber of the plant that grew by the stream bank. Arrows, thin straight branches, end burned for hardness, fletching from bird feathers found on the shore. At first he shot poorly. The arrow went sideways, not there. But his hands remembered quickly. Army shooting, different weapon, but the principle the same. Stance, breathing, aiming point. By the evening of the 2nd day, he hit a tree trunk from 20 meters. Yunji watched. Do you want to teach us? Yes, now? Now. Yunji took the bow awkwardly, gripped too high, held the string wrong. Like this, he corrected her hands. Lower. Bend your left elbow a little, pull to the cheek, not to the chin. She shot. The arrow went 3 meters to the side. Nothing, he said. This is nothing? This is the first shot. Pause. Shoot again. Hannah, she took the bow as if she had held it before. Set her feet, drew, aimed, shot. The arrow hit the tree, not the center, but the tree. Have you shot before? Asked Jinsu. From a crossbow. At a corporate event, she said calmly. Once? That was enough, he said. In the end, he made 3 bows for himself and the girls. 20 arrows for each. Not many, but enough for defense. The bridge across the ditch, drawbridge from poles, on rope. Lowers from the entrance, raises from inside. To helped. His people knew how to work with heavy wood. On the 42nd day, the base looked like this. 200 meters of woven fence 2 meters high. Ditch outside 1 meter 20 deep with stakes at the bottom. Drawbridge at the only entrance. Tower 6 meters, visible far. Earthen rampart by the western wall 1/2 meter, additional internal protection. Hidden exit on the north, camouflaged in case of retreat. The house warm, dry, reliable. The farm expanded, 3 kinds of food growing. The workshop full of tools, constant water supply. Food reserve for at least a week. And 4 people from To's tribe inside the perimeter. Voluntarily, silent, working, useful. Jinsu stood on the tower in the evening of the 42nd day. Looked to the west. Sunset painted the sky above the jungle orange. Quiet. Too quiet. Birds in the west weren't singing. They had fallen silent an hour ago. He descended. Tonight, he said. Hannah looked at him. How do you know? The birds, he said. Western side have been silent for an hour. Something is moving in that forest. Yunji calmly, without panic, took the bow. Checked the string. What do we do? We remove the bridge, he said. To and his people to the eastern side. We on the tower and on the rampart by the western wall. No one sleeps. He passed it to Hannah. She translated to Toa. Toa listened, nodded, said something short to his own. They stood up without extra movements, took their weapons. Stood by the eastern wall facing outward. Raised the bridge. Closed the entrance. Put out the fire in the hearth. No need to show where they were. Night covered the island. Jinsu sat on the tower, held the bow, looked to the west. Yunji below by the rampart, a quiet shadow indistinguishable. Hannah by the eastern wall next to Toa's people. They waited. The jungle was silent. Then far away, about 100 meters, a branch cracked. Then another. Then many steps at once. Jinsu inhaled. Exhaled. Placed an arrow on the string and began to wait for dawn.